Dan Zimmermann. How you doing, man?
Rich, how are you?
I'm doing all right. I appreciate you taking the time to come on and share your
Anytime.
story.
Cool.
And let me just go ahead and jump into an introduction for you. Uh, that way the audience gets a little bit of understanding of who's on the podcast today. You are an artist, first and foremost,
Absolutely.
but you're also an automotive design leader with over
Mhm.
2 decades in the industry. You've shaped interiors and accessories for some of the most iconic vehicles at Chrysler, Dodge, and Mopar. You're a master of product innovation, specializing in product ideation, branding, graphic design, fabrication, and alias 3D modeling. You drive cutting edge designs from concept to production. You're an execution expert, deeply involved in surface data analysis, tooling conditions, perceived quality renovation, and gap execution, ensuring top tier vehicle craftsmanship. Um, Life cycle and reveal specialist, fluent in full vehicle life cycle programs and high profile product reveals with compressed timelines. An automotive enthusiast and historian yourself. Um,
Mhm.
you love automotive history and restoration, blending heritage with modern innovation. You
Mhm.
are a former interior design manager with Dodge SRT, and you led the Dodge SRT interior development, overseeing design from sketch to production. You were a Mopar accessories and concept vehicles lead, where you spearheaded both conceptual and production accessories, as well as concept vehicle builds from press and product launches. That's a whole lot of what might seem to be very technical
Yes.
compared to the artistic elements
Right. Right.
of things.
Absolutely. It's kind of funny just hearing it. It's like, wow, it's me. I always think of myself as, a kid who draws cars. I'm the kid in the class that was always just drawing on his homework and whatnot. It's over 20 years in the industry. It's like the misconception is you're just drawing cars all day long, but the reality is you're leading meetings, you're convincing people to try to enable what you're doing as a design lead into reality, and then you just got to work through the problems, and then you become a hostage negotiator. So it does get technical, and in order to capture your vision, you have to know a little thing or two about engineering and production and stuff, and you pick that stuff up along the way. So yes, it sounds very technical, but the reality is, it's just learned experience, just like anything else. So it's just
Right.
part of being a functional artist in the industrial, um, I
Landscape.
guess, genre and landscape, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting. You mentioned that kid that was just drawing cars. And let's go back there and I'll start with my intro question, which is where were you born and what was life like as a kid?
Cool. Well, that's a really interesting one. So, obviously I live in Detroit, right? So I think there's a lot of people that are transplants here, but there's probably more people that have been born and raised here.
Yeah.
I was born in Hartford, Connecticut. And then I moved to Massachusetts, and I stayed in Massachusetts till about, I guess I would be maybe 12 or something like that. So I'm an East Coaster by nature. And what was life like when I was a kid? So, really, a lot of interesting stories about my creative senses coming online very early.
Okay.
I it's funny, all these things that you remember, like I would organize my Hot Wheels cars and line them up and by color and by shape. I mean, I'd find different organizational methods for that stuff. But I don't know what happened, but like it just clicked with me. I just wanted to draw cars at a very early age. So it was like, first it started out like drawing landscapes and plans for, where your cars are going to go and parking lots and, off-road adventures, and was interested in that sort of thing. And then being on the East Coast during the 70s, it was like a time of expansion in suburbia. So there was a lot of construction. I was like completely fascinated by that stuff. So like I wanted to draw what I saw and try to like visually record it. And
Yeah.
I just started doing that, and then we would go back and forth to my grandfather's body shop, and I would like look through his build books and of these old cars from like the 40s and 50s and everything. And I would see the stuff that he would do, and it was like, wow, that's really cool. So I'd like do a drawing of something, and I'd bring it to him. I'm like, yeah, here's this drawing of this, 54 Chevy, and here's a 1979 Mack truck cab over, and he's like, well, you've got two handles here. You got this mirror here. He's like, well, there would only be one. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I'd like go back and, start to get like that, I guess you could say that conscious eye to develop and learn the details of something and what was important about certain things. And then just like it, I guess it was like positive reinforcement at a very early age.
Yeah.
And that interest level just kept growing. And I was always go to car shows and stuff like that with my father, my grandfather, and it just became a thing. And I was always interested. So I remember going to like World of Wheels, right?
Okay.
So the East Coast they have World of Wheels, and going to these van shows and seeing all these crazy vans. And one of the probably the one of the most formidable toys that I ever got when I must have been God, maybe 8 or 9,
Okay.
maybe somewhere around there. I got this thing called Van Goghs, and it's like I think it was done by Kenner, and it was like this 3 plate rub down thing that you could mix and match all these different vans that they had. It was like a side view, and you could make all these vans. And at the time, vans were in vogue, so
Right.
I would do all these rub downs, and then I'd start modifying things. So it just kind of stuck, and it kind of pushed it because I was doing better stuff, and I color it in, and then I started to want to like turn the vehicle. So there was this interest that just kind of took hold. I had a teacher at an early age. They had art in a cart. I think you probably heard me say this before. Like
Yeah.
we had an art teacher that would come into the room. He'd bring a cart, wheel it out, and he'd hand out the supplies for the day, and you'd be drawing or doing whatever, and I would just be in my own little world. And like that to me was like the most interesting part of my day, and the rest of it just kind of faded away. It's like
Right.
I had friends and everything, good friends, but I was just lost in the world of art. And then I met somebody that was also another artist, and he was creative, and he would listen to music and draw stuff. And I think at that point my parents started paying for art classes, just extra art classes, because it just kept the fire was growing, right? It's like
Yeah.
feed the fire. So that part was good, and everyone noticed my drawings were getting better each time. And I had a display that actually went up at this grade school that I was at. And then I think I moved away the end of grade school. I think it was like when I was 12. I moved to Detroit, and I had no idea what's Michigan. What's that like? It
Yeah. Yeah.
looks like a big forest. Um, and when I moved, I went right into high school, and it was really interesting because I'm in this massive school. I came from a very small town. I lived in Acton, Massachusetts, so it's home of the Minuteman. So
Okay.
if you're kind of a history buff, it's like a very colonial area. A lot of people that have been there for a long time. Very small town. So moving here, it was pretty significant. So a big population change. It was more of like a city. There was a lot more going on, and the kids were a little bit more progressive, a little bit more up to snuff with fashion and whatnot,
Right.
and
Right. And
meeting a lot of. Go ahead.
was that move based off of a parent's job shift?
Yes, yes, it
Okay.
was.
So
So
what did your dad do and what did your mom do in terms of
so my father was a polymer adhesives chemist.
okay.
So totally different mindset. He helped produce Loctite super glue. So we lived in Puerto Rico for like 6 months of our life, and he helped produce super glue there. He's got his name on a bunch of patents for cyanoacrylate development.
Okay.
Duct tape, curad, band-aids, stuff like that. Like he did a lot of like really interesting adhesives work. My mom worked for the assessor's office, and she worked like at a five and dime. She just did different things. She did telemarketing for a little while. So the move that we did to come out here to Detroit was, my father took a, I guess you could say, a promotion to come out here and to build up a lab. And the company that he was working for was, God, I want to say it was, Parker Adhesives. Like, I can't remember what it was, but
Okay.
um, I can't remember at the time. But anyway, it was, a big change. So he had his own lab and everything. But I was only there once in my entire life. It was really really interesting.
Right. It,
Um,
it sounds like too that your grandfather's and his body shop had a real impression on you visually seeing cars and how they're potentially built and what goes into the
Absolutely.
undercarriage.
Absolutely. Yep.
What was it like when you had to make that move? And I'm assuming that he still stayed in
Yes.
Massachusetts and didn't travel with you.
Well, they had a shop in New York. We would, being that like my town was like 4 hours away from New York, we would go back
Okay.
and forth all the time. And, since we were pretty young and impressionable, it's like the shop was a big part of, going there and hanging out and sweeping the floor and looking at the
Yeah.
build books and walking around the shop and seeing the cars. But yeah, I mean, I always remember that stuff. And in that time frame when I was still on the East Coast, my father, this was like I think it was like 77. Up until 77, I think my dad had a 77 or 79. He had a 70 Dodge Challenger. And he was always working on that thing. So
Yeah.
it's like, it was lime green, a sublime. And I always remember him working on it and, being in that car. And it was such a cool design. I was so like enamored with it. But again, it's like I have these memories, fond memories of that car, standing in that car, sitting in that car, and trying to drive it and being in the shop. It's like strong memories. And then when we moved out here, I think my dad sold his Challenger and got a red 79 or 80 Ford Fairmont. Was like the most basic of cars you could ever, get. It was like every single red on the interior was a different color red, but it was all supposed to be red.
Yeah.
But it was just, the banality of the malaise era just, taking hold, and, my disappointment. That's still, anyway, but moving out here, it was a big cultural change, and, didn't know a lot of people, and it was kind of weird at first, but
Okay.
yeah.
And s- and with being in elementary school and having that opportunity of that art in a cart coming to your classroom, that's 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 a that's an opportunity that most kids do not get nowadays.
Yeah,
Um,
it's sad.
right? So that being the case and it stimulating you and allowing you to just venture off into your own world, when that would come into play, where you could kind of disappear from everything else that was around you. How was that experience in terms of now you're moving to a completely different city? The art in the cart, I'm assuming, is not available at that point in time anymore either.
It was different, right? We
Yeah,
I thinking back on it, so I guess we all develop coping mechanisms, right? So
yeah,
I was uncomfortable in my new surroundings, so I started drawing. And there was a kid who recognized my drawing, and he just, he leans over and looks at what I'm doing, and he's like, "Hey, I know a guy that's in the other class that's drawing too." So he snatches my piece of art and then comes back with the drawing, and it's got some corrections on it. I'm like, "Oh, that's interesting." So I start drawing more, and the guy that's sitting next to me, he snatches it, brings it back to this other dude. We're trading artwork like that, and it's like, I'm in my zone, my comfort zone, right? Is
yeah,
piece of paper at that time.
yeah,
And obviously, there's another person on the other side of the wall in the other room that's in their comfort zone that's drawing as well. So, pretty much like after class, he goes to introduce us. And lo and behold, it's like I've met my counterpart, my a good friend at that point. Just instantly like hit it off. And, we were always in art classes from that point on in our lives together, which
yeah,
is crazy to think
yeah.
about. But yeah, it was, I guess you could say, the mental rescue operation is that safety zone is finding solace in a piece of paper and all of a sudden making a new friend that would be, something that was quite unique.
Right, right, for sure. And what grade level was that?
This was sixth grade, so
Six.
I was
Okay.
12, 13, yeah, somewhere around
Right
there.
on. Okay.
Yeah.
One of the other things I'm noticing in your background there is a bunch of BMX
Yes, yes,
images.
yes.
And I'm assuming that played into life for you as well.
Huge,
Was that
huge. Yeah.
something that took place outside of school
Yeah,
around that
so
time?
it was the '80s,
Yeah.
right? So neon was in vogue and everything, and, I got into BMX, kind of on the East Coast. A friend, took me out and, we went to a pedal power store and saw these new bikes, and the kid next door to me had a red line. It was like,
Oh
"Whoa,
yeah, yeah.
look at that bike." It
Yep.
was white, had red graphics, he had blue mags, it was like all America, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And the Oakley O-wing grips and stuff. So it was like there is an association that I draw with like the BMX and freestyle bikes of the '80s is like it's like muscle cars, right?
Right.
To '70s. It's like you can't have one without the other. So there was this visual draw. So you see the bold graphics and the cool frame styles and everything. So I got into BMX out there, started, getting into it a little bit, building up bikes. And then when I moved out to Michigan, I found a few people that rode and they were into BMX as well. They were doing dirt jumps and they had some, pretty fancy bikes and everything. And we would always, build stuff and build ramps and, jumps and have all these like contests and everything. And I started getting more and more serious about it. And I had saved up a lot of money, and I've obviously been subscribing to and buying all the BMX and freestyle magazines that were around that I could get my grubby hands on.
Yeah.
And I had seen some advertisements and some cartoons in there that I thought were amazing. It's like, holy cow, there's artists that are into this that are, they're doing this stuff and like they're drawing this. And I would always start to, kind of poke at that and seeing that there was art on that side of the fence too.
Right.
And I really kind of fell in love with Haro bikes, and I started doing contests and flatland and everything in between.
Yeah.
And at that time, I started working in a bike store, which was ancillary to my art career and everything, and doing art. And I was freestyle riding, and I was competitive. And when I say I was competitive, I was competitive. So I rode for like 8 hours a day at some points, and just kept at it and did contests and everything. And I went through parts after parts, and it was like the cool thing was like that visual energy was always there. It was always inspiring to that extent. Yeah, I collected a bunch of bikes at that point in time, and riding and just beating on the bikes and as much as you possibly could. I ended up running a bike shop out at the Woodward BMX freestyle camp for a little bit,
Okay.
in the summer. It was just awesome, awesome memories, that stuff, and friends that were into it and riding. But it's a big influence of my life. I really really do enjoy it, and this comes back, and I'll bring that in a little bit later too, how things have come full circle.
Cool. Very cool. So if you're getting into riding that much, up to 8 hours a day, y- what is your schoolwork looking like at that point? I'm assuming it may have potentially played into some academics.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. I mean, I wasn't fantastic at school. Like I liked English, I liked history. I really enjoyed both of those subjects for quite a long time.
Okay.
Math, I always did horrible at. I mean, I always had to keep up a grade point average and keep that up. And I actually joined the swim team. I was a diver, competitive diver for a little bit. And I
Oh wow.
was not good by any means. I thought that the freestyle would translate into diving, but
Doesn't.
damn, it was not. So, but yeah, the grades I did okay. I always had a great level of difficulty with math. I'm just not built that way. And my father and I would just butt heads on it, like math and science. Like it just like I couldn't get it. Somehow I ended up in accelerated physics. Like I liked physics, I liked some of that stuff. I ended up there, but as soon as like we got into like the complex formula, my grades just took a nose. It
Oh
was
wow.
like,
Yeah.
I remember just pulling out my hair because every time I would do a problem that it would come out differently. The
Right,
solution,
right. And
So
did you have any siblings?
I did, yeah. So
Yeah.
my brother, who's now a doctor, was good at math and good at biology and everything else, and was straight A student. And at one point, like I think I had to withdraw from chemistry because I was sick and I missed too much stuff or whatever, and ended up having to drop because I still needed to have my portfolio stuff. So I dropped. I'm like, all right, I'll just take it the next year as an elective or whatever. And I ended up being in a class with my brother of all things. So, and my brother was, basically a year forward in his academics as far as like chemistry goes. So I was taking a step back or even two steps back in some cases, and he was in the same class. And the teacher would pick on me. He's like, Zimmerman, why can't you get it right? Your father is a chemist, for God's sakes. He's like, why
Right,
don't you be like your younger brother? It's like, I just can't get it.
right.
So but it's always interesting. You look back, it's like I still have fond memories. I have friends that try to help me cheat and everything, and it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it's part of the artist's life. You try to balance things out as best you can, and ultimately you just know you're not good at it. You're not meant for that stuff as an
Right.
artist. So
Right. Yeah. I relate to that immensely. I I just passed all my other regular classes. Art was where I excelled as well, and
mhm.
that was really all I wanted to be able to do. And all the other stuff, it just seemed so not realistic for me.
Right, couldn't figure out the application for it.
Yeah, exactly. Once I got past multiplication, I just stopped. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do algebra. I couldn't do geometry.
Nope.
Like, it didn't make any sense to me whatsoever. With having to be in the same grade as your brother, or class rather, at a point in time, and you got that teacher hounding you, what is that doing to your psyche in terms of,
Oh man. Like I was worn out in high school because I was working two jobs. I was working on my portfolio always, right? Working on the art, and then I was riding as well and doing the swimming, that sort of thing. And I was also wrenching. I bought a car by that point in time, and I was always working on it. So it's like I was quickly wearing myself down. And my dad and I didn't get along. He was a very different person. I don't think he liked doing what he was doing at the time. So we were clashing a lot, and my grades were always the subject of a conversation, and money was always a subject of conversation. And it just I was worn out and I was really tired of it all. And in my family, there was a lot of yelling going on all the time in the background and everything. And it's like as a creative person, there's influences that you have, and then there's I guess you could say the solace of paper,
yeah,
right? And where you want to be in creating your own safe zone and that sort of thing. So, I mean, I would that was my escape, right? Is I could I didn't have to be physical to be drawing. I just had to be drawing, right? And
yep,
keeping my mind going. And that was kind of nice. But I was worn out. Like I was just worn out with school, like with the classes, like you said, like algebra and geometry. I didn't do very well. I remember this story, and I've told this story many times, but I had, friends that would help me cheat because like I
yeah,
was the guy that, did their jean jackets and
yeah,
stuff. And,
yeah,
so I had friends that would give me scores and, and help me. And I remember walking into class one day after, just working and working on my portfolio for a big assignment and, an English assignment or something. So I had a pile of homework, and I just like the math, like I remember having a fight with my dad that night. And I'm just like, I couldn't make ends of or heads or tails of what I was doing. Can't even do it anymore.
yeah,
So I go into class, and I'm in class, and I've got my portfolio with me, and I'm I'm in there, and the guy who sits behind me, he says, "Hey, Z," he's like, "Did you study for the test?" I'm like, "What test?" He's like, "There's a test today." I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" He's like, "No." He's like, "Do you want the scores?" I'm like, "Nah, I'm good." He's like, "What?" It's like, "No, I'm done. I can't. I It doesn't do me any good. It's not, I don't see the application for me. I just don't see it."
Right.
And I'm just sitting there, just like I'm in a haze, and I'm just like taking this test, and I'm just kind of zoning out, and I'm just like, I'm just tanking it, right? I'm just tanking it to tank it at this point. I'm just
Yeah.
drawing a complete blank. And the teacher looks up at me, and mind you, this guy, he was I think he was algebra 2 or something. I can't even remember what class it was. Nice guy. He says, "Zimmerman." I'm like, "Uh-oh." I'm like, "Did he hear that conversation?"
Right.
I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "What are you doing here?" I'm like, "Uh, I don't know what am I doing here?" He's like, You don't have to be here, right?" I'm like, What do you mean I don't have to be here?" He's like, "You have enough credits to graduate with math." He's like, "You don't need to be here." And everyone is like, this is in,
Oh,
like, in the middle of the test, and everyone's like looking around like, "What's going on?" And I'm
right.
like, I don't need to be here. So I pick up my portfolio, and I like look around, and I just like grab my test, and I handed my test, and I walked out. But
Oh,
it was like,
wow.
I had done some work for this guy before. I would do like he had like road rallies and stuff. I would do like plaques for him and stuff. But
Okay.
he saw me struggling, and he was like, "Man, I'm just gonna let you go." He's like, we don't need to keep doing this." He's like, "I can see it's just wearing on you." But it
Yeah.
was like the coolest thing, because that broke off another chunk of my day to do more artwork. So
Right. Right. Wow. Yeah, that's I call those things God winks,
yeah,
where it's like you're just completely defeated and you're bogged down with life and everything that you're having to do at that point in time. And then there's something that happens that just cuts you a break when you really need it.
yep.
And that's amazing that he was able to see that and be like, "Yo, you don't have to be here. Like
I
it's
I I
unnecessary."
can't even. I still can't even to this day. I'm like, how did he just stop class to do that? It was just unbelievable. Like, out of nowhere, just out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It was so
Yeah.
cool.
That's wild. And you mentioned that you had done some plaques and stuff for him. Are you doing different things that are artistic for people around you because they're seeing this talent within you and they want to be a part of it in some way?
Yeah, it's funny, like all through high school, like, I mentioned I was doing jean jackets and doing logos and stuff like that, or doing drawings and
Yeah.
competing in art competitions and stuff. And, I did cartoons for a little while for a psychologist, and doing some things to illustrate stuff, or I don't know, at the time it was like slideshows. Um, but I guess I was doing things all around me, and I never really like picked up on how, I guess you'd say, influential that was in the direction, and to keep my hands in as many cookie jars as I possibly could. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm always looking to create, always. And that's like, I think you get addicted. It's like, it's
Yep.
it's the artist crack.
Yep. It is. It very much is. Very much is. With some of uh the stress that's happening at home as well. Um, is that is some of that taking place because both parents are working, or is some of that taking place because only one's working and the other one's trying to take care of the home life?
I think my parents were always working. I mean, my mom worked part-time for a number of years, but so really unique thing that happened in high school was, I think it was like my junior year, like the beginning of my junior year. My dad decided he was going to leave the company he was at and go take a job in Wisconsin. And it was supposed to be like a promotion, and he was going to be doing something else. And as things turned out, they hired him kind of under false pretenses, thinking he could do something that was unfamiliar to him.
Oh, wow.
We ended up buying a house out in Wisconsin. We were 3 days away from closing. We had our house sold, right? We had taken a deposit on the house. We were getting ready to move. My dad was living out there, coming back and forth from Wisconsin to Detroit. And he calls one day. It was like on my brother's birthday. And he's like, I'm coming home. He's like, it just didn't work out. He's this, it's over. And my mom pulled the plug on everything like instantly. Like she reneged on the house deal. We lost her deposit for the house. I mean, it was a lot of money,
Oh, wow.
and we lost out on the house that, when we were trying to sell our house. We were literally probably about 3 days away from being homeless at that point.
Oh,
Like it was that close to pull the plug at that point in time. So from that point on, things got extremely difficult because, again, money was always a conversation. My mom was the one that was working at that point, and working multiple jobs, and my dad, had to try to find himself. I mean, it was the 80s. He was overqualified and,
wow.
overeducated for everything that out there was available, but he was older.
Yes.
So he went jobless for quite a while, and then he started driving a delivery truck. He did, midnight deliveries. He did everything under the sun to kind of, help bring home the bacon, so to speak. But man, we the clashes were daily, multiple times daily, because I didn't have a real future, right, with art. And I think that I hear that from so many other artists, that it's not a real career,
Right.
that everyone has had to kind of endure that. And there's deep rooted trauma with a lot of that in conversation, because you feel less than, and your desire to overachieve. And myself, I was like, I'm going to do it in spite of all that, right? I'm
Yeah,
going to do it because I can, and I know that I can. But it was horrible. It was just absolutely horrible. But it made me strive to do better, and to be the best artist I possibly could, in spite of everything that was going on around me. It was, looking back on it, I always, like, I was scrimping. It was like pennies and, dollars, whatever I could muster up, put gas in my car and just get out of the house, and stay over to friends or something. But it was challenging, and to be creative under the stress umbrella of, knowing that everyone's out for you, at home, like trying to either A, get you to take a serious job, or B, get your homework done, and, be the best, and start bringing home some bread. But
right. Yeah, and I can imagine as well too. Again, you're saying your dad being overqualified, being it difficult to find some kind of work. I would assume that him having to take a delivery job just to make sure that he can bring home some cash to the family and support the family compared to what he was doing, where he's developing these adhesives. I can imagine that that was just a blow to his own psyche,
totally, totally.
to where
Um,
he even felt lesser than, right?
Yeah, and he took it out on us. I mean, he took it out on all of us, and he was just angry. He had been angry, and now he was angrier.
Yeah.
So it took a toll on everybody. It was shitty, just shitty. Um, I think that he realized that he had put himself in this sort of situation. He again was also taught that, something different. Like, you do what you have to, not what you want to do, right? So when he was a kid, he wanted to go to college, and his mother told him, go out and get a real job. Like, that's
Oh, wow.
that's not a thing at the
Yeah,
time. So I think that is progenerated from generation to generation, because of the myopic view of our world now, with industry, and the internet, and all the media sites. It's like things are a lot different, and there's a lot more openness about different careers. So very different
for sure.
mindset.
Yeah. Was that anger? Was it mostly just verbal, or was there any physical anger
Oh, it
that
was
would take
all
place?
sorts. I mean, I just got picked on because I was different. I mean, it
Yeah.
was just like that. And then I rebelled and didn't make it any better. I was kind of a smart ass like anybody else was in a
Okay.
teenage years. But it was, not the kind of role model you want to have for a family relationship and that sort of thing. I can't fault my father because he didn't have a father really. So it was just one of those things where it's like, okay, this is your upbringing. This is, what you're not going to do, and just focus in on what you want to be.
Yeah. And then with that, was your grandfather that had the body shop, was he your mom's dad? Okay. Right on. All right. And I find this interesting a lot of times through people's stories is that the grandparents um, seem to have a more impactful influence on a kid's life, um, because for whatever reason, there's just this gap of connection from the child to the parent to the grandparent. The grandparent seems to be able to connect more in some way, or there's an attraction from the child to the grandparent in some way because of what they're doing or what they experience are doing in life and experiencing in life. And I find it fascinating that there's parents a lot of times are the gap that separates opportunity potential, and it's not as nurturing as what the grandparents had showed. Um, and I'm assuming too, based on what you're saying to me and to the audience, is that your mom and dad are having these difficulties with each other, and then life experiences that are they they can't
Difficult
seem to
situations. Yeah.
yeah, that can't seem to get a hold of and get control of to the point where they can be nurturing to the kids. It's more of we've got to just let this out and it's going to affect everybody that's in the way, regardless. And it just happens to trickle down on you and your brother,
Hmm.
that kind of a
Hmm.
thing. Did did some of that angst, um, because I'm familiar with the BMX culture, and the skate culture and the surf culture. Was some of that angst that may have been in you, was that able to come out with doing the BMX stuff?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's an element of risk taking that, that thrill. I think you're either born a risk taker or you're not. I was definitely born a risk taker for sure of all the stuff that I've ever done, and doing things, and not really caring, just wearing yourself out, and just, like, just you just want to be exhausted, and you're just
Right.
like, there's fulfillment there.
Yeah, you're trying to burn it all off.
Yep.
Trying to burn it all off. Um, you mentioned that as you got the opportunity to exit that class by the grace of that teacher, that you grabbed your portfolio. Um, at that point in time, I'm guessing you're probably close to junior or senior year.
Yeah, so it was, I would say that that was my junior year. I think it was the first semester of my junior year, but something else interesting happened at the school.
Okay.
So I mentioned to you that the grade school friend of mine that I was drawing with, that became instant friends, my friend Todd. My friend Todd and I were taking art classes together in high school. We happened to be at the same high school, and there were several others that we knew that were also taking art. But these people were not just run of the mill artists; they were extremely talented. So there's this pool of us. It was between 8 and 12 serious artists at the time,
Wow.
and the teacher, the art teacher, he was an old CCS guy,
Okay.
illustrator. He did gouache paintings. I mean, the guy was like amazing. He was a hard ass. Did ceramics, sold ceramics like on the weekend, did ceramic shows, and then he taught art. He realized that he's got all of us. He finds out that I'm dropping out of that first semester, right, or that mid first semester into the second semester, whatever. And he calls a meeting with the rest of the department. And I was also taking CAD classes and drafting classes, and there were a couple of people that were also taking the drafting classes that were in the art classes, and there were some amazing ceramicists as well that were in these classes. And the art teacher got a bright idea. This guy, just to frame this, he's in his late 50s, if not early 60s. He's ready to retire.
Oh, wow.
He sees all of us coming in as a flood, and he's like, "Oh my god, I have to do something here." So he starts meeting with all the people at the school, the guidance counselors and everything. And the guidance counselors, they didn't know what art careers. They had no idea. And my teacher kind of grabbed that guy by the ear and was like, listen, it's like, this is art school. This isn't engineering school. This is what we need to do. So he reformulated a plan and got all of the other teachers' approval. He built a studio block for us. 3 hours of school for us, all of us serious artists, was just studio time. And
Wow.
it was a serious studio time. And he had a serious, plan, and it was like a portfolio class, and you did this, and we had these extreme assignments, and it was like the building block for college. But it took this teacher and like these chain of events with all these people at the right place and the right time to reformat the education in the school and to create the studio block. So what's interesting is of these let's say 8 to 12 people that were into the art, I think there's maybe 8 professional artists out of that. I mean, they
Wow.
stayed all the
Yeah,
way through, which is absolutely incredible. And many of them went to art school, which is crazy. And the fact that they've made a professional career, I mean, it's like something was in the water at that point.
for sure.
So it was rare. But it was so cool. It was so creative, and it was a break in a different reality. And I think all the parents at that point started to take notice. Like, there's something special here. Like, we don't know how this happened. It's just special. And they would do like we would have conference night, and the teacher would talk to them about what we were doing. They'd show all the artwork, and parents would come away blown away. They would just be like, this is insane. Like, this is like college.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
but it was amazing.
and just to give the audience a little bit of a reference point, you said he was a CCS grad. Um, CCS, for all the Michigan people, most of them probably know, but people outside of Michigan, it's a Center for Creative Studies, which it is basically has been the backbone for the automotive industry in terms of designers and creatives for many years. And it's kind of like for a great period of time, uh, at least through my years as well, it was kind of the mecca of schools, of art schools within Metro Detroit.
Right.
So the quality of the people that would go there, the people that it would exit out, was very high, very high. So it was it's fascinating as you're telling that story of the fact that he's seeing this group, which is, you said it was 12, so eh, that's a lot. That's a lot of people who have this skill set, and he's recognizing, he's like, whoa, wait a second. This is like a golden egg, because a lot of times you may have one or two in an art class that are really talented and have the skill set to, they're going to go on and be able to do something. So him saying this, him restructuring a plan and a program to potentially get you guys ready, that's a huge, again, I look at it as an influencer within a child's life that is really recognizing the talent within them and the fact that they can excel if we give them the right environment to be in.
Yeah. Yep.
And I become fearful over the years, and that is going away, and it's being lost in schools. Um,
Totally.
to the point where we may not have that opportunity. And I feel like
Totally.
us as older creatives can do something like this where we're talking about it, and maybe, a younger art student just hears the conversation, and that gives them enough strength to push through and keep
Mhm.
forging on and trying to
Absolutely.
craft that
Absolutely.
skill set. With this new dynamic of having this 3 hour block of time, how is that starting to shape your thought process going into uh, the end of junior year into senior year?
It was crazy. The intensity got turned up. I became a lot more serious about the art, and then the coolest thing about being an artist is getting feedback from others. Others that you respect, you appreciate, and have skill, and it's not like, oh, that's pretty, or that's cute, or whatever. There's more comprehensive feedback that you receive from other artists, and it makes you better, stronger, more capable. So to hear that kind of made us all recognize that this was special and unique, and we built better portfolios for things, and it was inspirational. It's like you're still a sponge, right? I think I try to always be a sponge, but at that point, it's like I was just soaking it up. I mean, it was incredible. All the stuff that was going on around me. We had a guy who was absolutely like he was like uh God, this guy was like Da Vinci. I mean, he could draw any figure, any given pose. I mean, he just understood anatomy. And the guy was just a consummate fine artist. And he was an athlete too, which was kind of, I guess you could say, against the stereotype. We had a couple athletes in there, and these guys were
Yeah.
so talented. And my friend Todd was good at graphics, as well as he had a sensitivity to design, and some people were good with all aspects of stuff, and we would all kind of compete with each other. But it wasn't like, oh, look at me, I'm better, and this, and it's like everybody was, we were building each other up.
Yeah.
And I think that was a profound thing that not everyone gets to experience, because you all realize that, it's a rare thing, and we all kind of like looked around. And it's like, yeah, this is pretty cool. So,
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And with that, are you starting to think I'm going to go off to college? And if so, is CCS one of your targets, or are you looking at other options at that point?
it's again another interesting thing that happened. I applied to CCS. I went into There was a portfolio day. We did a portfolio prep class, my friend Todd and I, at CCS. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to go to CCS. I applied to CCS. I wanted to try to get into RISD. I applied to RISD. I got in line to go to Art Center to go get my portfolio reviewed at Art Center. I saw the guy in front of me, and it was probably somebody like Doug Chang, who's like the lead on Star Wars. Is like just an impressive like array of renderings and concept sketches. And I'm just like, I look at mine, I'm like, oh, we're out of here. So I actually went and I did a portfolio review with Cleveland Institute of Art, and I kind of like what they had to say, and I saw photos of their campus. So I'm like, yeah, I'll give it a shot. And my friend, unknowingly, my friend Todd went down one weekend in August with his parents and really liked it there. And I went down. I think I went down after him at the end of August, and I was blown away. I'm like, oh my God, this place is amazing. It's like cultural center. There's museums on site. It's beautiful grounds. Like I can sense the creative atmosphere. There's a lot of like creative problem solvers that came from there. They have fine arts, because I'm not sure I want to be an industrial designer. I want, I've got sculpture, I've got painting, I've got these amazing artists that are there, that are world renowned. And I'm like, I've made up my mind. I'm going to go to Cleveland. Well, I had applied to CCS, as mentioned. I I accepted at Cleveland. I found out I got into RISD. I accepted at Cleveland. I turned RISD down, and I got all my stuff, and I'm ready to go. I'm committed. And talking to my friend Todd, he's like asking me about school. I'm like, yeah, I selected this place called Cleveland Institute of Art, and he says, yeah, that's where I'm going too. So here's my middle school friend that I'm now, gone through high school with. Now we're going to college together. So it's like we, instant pals still,
Yeah.
right? So we're going to the same school. So it was another incredible experience starting to take foothold. And just the creative atmosphere in that place was unprecedented. I mean, it was the 90s. The music scene was incredible in Cleveland. So there's always like a concert or show to go to. And there were some absolutely like ballistically talented people there. I mean, you had teachers coming down from the industry. So the first couple years at Cleveland, I went to a 5-year school. So the first couple years were like foundation stuff, and you really don't take anything in your major till your third year. So, but it was just incredible to be around some of these teachers and to kind of get a foothold, a mental foothold on what they're trying to teach you and the aspects of design, and craft and honing your craft. And um, just being a perfectionist and being self-guided, self-realizing, and motivated.
Yeah, yeah. Was there some thought process with that as well that if if I go off to Cleveland, then I'm creating a distance from the home life?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
That was the other main force for doing that. Is like I wanted to get out. I just wanted to leave because, again, at this point in my life, we had been financially struggling from year to year. From my junior year to my senior year, it was like just stretching every dime. And my grandfather had put away money for me to go to college there. And it was a nice relief, kind of a break. But I think I was still struggling with a lot of things, and
Yeah,
being in a new place on my own. I mean, it was the '90s, so it was like it was very different. My parents, we talk now and again, but again, I kind of embrace the distance and the difference between us,
yeah,
and just did my own thing, and I was as happy as I possibly could be.
yeah. And that's cool too that you got your friend that's going off with you. So you at least knew somebody in that new area that you could, kind of rely on a little bit to support each other with being in a new place, new town, uh,
Hmm.
new environment, those types of things. How was the first year of art school for you?
Yeah, it was intense. I think everybody is, as a student, they're probably more creative at nighttime than in the morning. It's like you're working on trying to be creative in a time frame. And sometimes, you just don't have the creative idea that you really want to have. So what do? You have to find a way to cultivate that idea and to kind of keep it going. Everyone has successes, everyone has failures. And if you're not failing, you're not trying. So, there's times where, you try something and it doesn't turn out that well. And then there's the happy accidents, and you just kind
Yeah,
of got to swing with it. You got to go. I can remember the first year we were doing a project, and I just couldn't think of anything creative to come up with this thing. It was like I think the project was organic line, and we had this teacher who I think his name was Joseph Jurgens, or I know his last name was Jurgens, but I think he worked with one of the op artists or the Dada artists in the '60s. So this guy was like way out there.
okay,
He
yeah,
was he was an assistant to Joseph Albers. So as an artist, so he gave us this project to do organic line, and my friend and I were like, I don't know what to do. Let's just blow off some steam. So they were throwing out all these like telephone books. In the directory in the trash. And I'm just like, I just grabbed a telephone book and I just chucked it down the stairs. I just chucked it, and it ripped apart, and I chucked it again. And I tore it, and I'm like, God, I can't figure something out. And I don't know, like I just I saw something, and I'm like, wait. And I grabbed one of the phone books and I lit it on fire, and then I blew it out, and all this organic line appeared in the pages, like get all the burn edges. And I'm like, I got it. And I assembled this huge piece. And it was like I presented it to the instructor the next day, and he was just like in awe. He's
nice.
like, "What's your motivation?" It's like I was pulling out some steam, man. We
Yeah,
had a few
exactly.
drinks and we were throwing around a phone book, and so inspiration comes from everywhere. Who are we to deny when it comes, and in what form?
Right.
So, but the first year was tough. It was tough to get acclimated, and to do all of the other classes as well, and kind of self manage and regulate get the homework done, because there's no one over your shoulder telling you when you're off at college, telling you to do this or to do that. It's like parenting was afar. It was a
Yeah,
state away,
yeah,
right? So I had to figure it out. I had to do it, whether I wanted to or not. I had to do it.
right. Yeah, I wanted to just touch on that experience of figuring out how to make that project work. Um, the angst that was in you turned into you picking up a phone book and just throwing it. and you seeing it do something by being thrown. You pick it up again and throw it again. Now you're like, I'm gonna just burn the shit out of this thing. And then you realize in the moment, oh wait, there's something taking place here. There's something happening.
Yeah.
This creativity is starting to flow in from this angst. And I think a lot of times, of course, and you see it in music for sure, where angst influences the sound, angst influences the genre,
Right.
angst influences the song titles and the song itself. And I don't know that people relate that a lot of times to physical art. Um, but the process that it took to get you to that place of, oh, this is the idea and this is how it fleshes out was just you going through trying to work out some of the frustration. And I think i- ideally that was a constructive way because you weren't destroying something that wasn't already being destroyed because you pulled it out of the garbage, right? It was on its way to its destruction anyways. So it was a constructive destruction. Um, and it produced something that made your teacher recognize it and then start to pontificate on it. And you're like, man, I was just trying to figure the fuck out what was going on.
Right. Right.
But I think that's a something that the audience could take away as creatives and trying to figure out processes and trying to just work through a frustration of not knowing what to do. If you just do some kind of movement, sometimes it works itself out.
Yep. You got to
Uh,
know when to walk away, right? I mean, everybody, when you're in a creative slump, you got to take it from a different angle, right? Get a fresh perspective, walk away, get fresh eyes on it, think about it, think it through. I'm always in my head with stuff like that.
yeah,
And, I think as creatives, I think you need to give yourself some of that time, and like hiatus, a little bit of hiatus, does you well.
yeah, for sure, for sure. All right, so let's move into sophomore year at school. Um, how are we doing in terms of mindset going into sophomore year? Are you starting to figure out get your feet underneath you, finding some
Yeah.
stable ground?
Yeah, I mean, you recognize like what's going on around you. I think the in art school there's a tremendous attrition rate, right? You might start in a class with 44 people and you might end up with, under 10
Yeah,
or, 20 people that graduate. So it just becomes this incredible active attrition. So you're watching it play out in real time. So by second year, we had seen some people that were succumbing to the stress of being creative within a time frame and having the confines of rules. You can't eat Cheerio. You can eat Cheerios whenever you want, but you still got to get your work done. So I saw a lot of people kind of struggling creatively, but then you saw people that really weren't cutting it. That were basically you could see that they were not putting in the effort, and it was not well talked about, not well reviewed, or if it was just like made uh, made an example of. And
yeah,
when I say made an example, we had some very harsh teachers. So,
yes,
in second year and third year, respectively, we had teachers that would literally like look at the art on the wall and say, well, this really isn't about, isn't something we should be talking about because, the corner's dog eared. And I wonder if this person's put any ounce of effort into it because the drawing doesn't fit this criteria or this criteria and it's sloppy and, it's poorly drawn, and they literally would take it off and then walk across it. And it's like a backhand at that
yes,
point. It's like wake up. That is a definite wake up call for all artists that you better be serious about this because otherwise you're just wasting everyone's time. And I think that was the messaging that would happen when someone was made an example of. I seen people get books, sketchbooks thrown at them or, stuff thrown across the floor. It's like, you know, get serious. It's just that's what the second year started to become. Um, and then we started like kind of peeking around and seeing what was in the majors and kind of like bootlegging or watching the classes and saying, "Man, I really want to do that, or I want to learn that," and kind of checking all that stuff out all of the time of being social, meeting new friends, checking out the music scene, doing this, that, and the other. And I think second year, I think it was second year I stopped riding BMX. I realized that there was two components to this. One, I had injured myself at the beginning of the school year
Okay.
on a bike, and the RA took notice, and we had the ambulance come and check me out and everything, and that's how I met my first girlfriend there.
Okay.
But the second time was I fell and I hurt my wrist or something, and I was like, wait a second, I can't injure this. I
Right.
cannot do this to myself because this is what I want to do from here forth. I can't like take any chances that this is going to screw up my future. So I'm like, I got to put this aside.
Yeah.
So at that point, I hung up the cranks, and just focused in on school.
Yeah. You mentioned the music scene, and I'm very familiar with the music scene, and I know that Cleveland is a hub um, for touring artists, and especially independent touring artists. That's one of the places that you go to kind of showcase yourself. Um, what types of music were coming into that area that was potentially influencing?
Everything, everything. I don't know if you so this goes back a ways, right? So I went to school in 91, and at the time, rock was still going on a few years prior, and maybe it was like 10 years prior or something. Michael J. Fox did a movie at the Euclid Tavern, which was The Light of Day. I think it's an old rock and roll film, whatever, but that was right around the corner from where we were. So there were bands that came through the Uke all the time, call it the Uke. So there was like Cross, Screw Tractor, like a lot of private bands, Jesus Lizard came through there. I mean,
Okay,
just
yeah,
everything came through there. And there were even like fraternities that they came through. Uh, I don't know. Grunge was just starting to take foothold. So we went down to the Odeon, saw Red Hot Chili Peppers with Smashing Pumpkins. And I think if it wasn't Pearl Jam, it was somebody else that was with them, like being introed. I mean, it was crazy in the music scene right then and there.
yeah,
And my friends, my friend Todd was in a band, and he
okay,
was playing. His friends would come down, but my roommate at the time was also in the music scene. So he was a guitarist and played some funky licks and whatnot. The guy was mega talented, right? Just like a creative superpower. All these people around me, creative superpowers. I've got zero musical talent, zero, big goose egg. So I always appreciated all that stuff. And, we would go to shows and see the bars. And my friend's band would actually came and played at the Euclid Tavern. And we would just see random stuff. But Derek Hess, who would do all these like rock band posters at the time,
yeah,
we'd collect his pieces because they'd basically be stapled up to telephone poles talking about the next show. So it was like, it was a thing to do in the 90s.
yeah,
You go see a show, come back, drink, go back to the studio or whatever. And just, it was just such a creative atmosphere in every sense. I would just hang out and with my buddies, and we would be drinking and they'd be playing music, and I'd just be grooving, drawing, listening to music. And it was like, there was no better time in my world than that. I mean, it was such a profound influence just from the synesthesia of everything creatively going on around me.
right, right. Yeah, that's always a an element that plays into an artist's career that is it's mind expansive. And influences in so many different ways. It's really great when you're able to experience that live, and at a particular point in time as well, when you're starting to see a genre start to evolve um, within an industry that you haven't heard before sonically. Um, Going into junior, senior year of college, are you starting to think, all right, how am I going to start making money with this craft?
Right, right. So, uh, So being that it was in a 5-year school, like the third year was this first year you can start kind of editing or auditing classes.
Okay.
And I was doing, I started taking ceramics and painting, and my teachers, like, I somehow or another, I picked up throwing on a wheel, and it just like stuck. And I was throwing like these crazy forms and tall forms and stuff. My teacher at the time, he was like, "You really should consider ceramics being your major." I'm like, respectively, this is really cool. But I said, I don't know how I'm going to pay the bills with this stuff. Like, I really like cars. I want to be a car designer. So,
Yeah.
at the same time, I was enjoying sculpture and welding stuff and fabricating and doing all that stuff. But I knew that at that point in my education, I wanted to be an automotive designer. I had seen some of the talent coming down from Detroit, doing demos. The interesting thing about a Cleveland Institute of Art was that they had automotive design class on Saturdays. So school wasn't 5 days a week; it was 6 days.
Okay.
So, I mean, it was like the volume 11 on the
Yeah.
scale, right?
Yeah.
So, but you would watch these guys and they could render stuff, and the Viscom that they had was just absolutely incredible. And we met two guys that actually interned at Chrysler at the time. We had met them in the summertime and saw, wow, this is really impressive, and you can get a job doing this and stuff. And what was interesting is my friend Todd, his father was a VP of design at Chrysler, and
Oh,
it's like it never really dawned on me at the time. It's like,
yeah.
oh, kids, that's your dad and whatever. But he was a very high-ranking design officer at Chrysler during the time of the '90s, and had a hand in some unbelievable product. Being that we were pals, I never really kind of put two and two together on this
Right.
stuff
Yeah.
until later on in life, as he was coming down for doing executive reviews and such. We would get a lot of feedback, auditing these classes and stuff, and you try to like compete with the assignments, and the assignment workload was insane. I mean, to kind of frame it. So when you're given an assignment by an automotive design class, it's like you have to do 10 renderings or 10 drawings, or you had to do 15 or 30 or something. You had to do that. Like that's just what you had to do. And at the time it was all analog. It was like, 12 by 36, all, this sort of thing. You had to do practice rounds and stuff. So it was really intense. And, we'd spend a lot of late nights doing all this stuff. Us being third years, we were hanging our stuff up with like the fourth year stuff, and like people started to take notice. Holy cow, this guy's, he's good. He's observant. He's picking this stuff up. And
Yeah.
I had also met another friend that was living with my friend Todd, and he's another industrial designer as well. And this guy, oh my God, he had the juice. This guy, like he touched the paper and it was like each line was perfect. And it was like the guy like had a sense of design, his composition, his art, his colors, everything. And he and I became really close friends during that whole thing. So he and I did audited um uh automotive design class together. And we were just like two peas in a pod. We were right at the same level the whole time and pushing each other. So
Yeah.
here we are hanging our work up next to fourth year, and in some cases blowing some of those guys away. In other cases, there are people far exceeding our abilities. But as we started coming up and taking notice, we were fulfilling the assignments and still doing our workload of other classes and stuff. And it became the thing. It's like people were like crowds started, coming to the reviews. Like these guys are, competing with the fourth years and whatever. And, pretty soon we're ready to do, more serious assignments. And, I think it was, um, GM and Chrysler would come down and give us feedback and stuff, and they'd talk about us back in Detroit and give us tougher assignments and everything,
Right.
and
Right.
see if they could break us, so to
Yeah.
speak. But, yeah, it was third year was it was amazing because the influence that we were starting to receive and the feedback that we were getting that was career moving in a direction. And inspirational, and people around us were pushing and pulling, and it was exciting, and it was exciting in time in design industry too, because Chrysler was coming out on top with all the concepts that they were doing
Yeah.
and whatnot. It was like, I really wanted to work for Chrysler. I was like, there's no way about it. That's what I gotta do. So I kind of like, in that point in time, I said in my head, like, I've got this goal. I'm going to work at Chrysler. I'm going to be a car designer, and that's what I want to do. And there's no one that's going to stop me from doing it.
Okay. Okay. And at this point, in the life cycle of college as well, are you having to work as well, or is
Yeah, I had to do work study. I had Pell Grants and loans and everything, and I
okay?
had to work part time, and I also needed money part time because my parents were really able to give me money. So I was bussing tables, at a wine place or Italian eatery. It was
Yeah.
horrible. Um, and I was also doing custodian ground stuff, like just painting and touching up and fixing the department. It was kind of falling apart. It was like, we called it the basement of design schools at the time. It was not fancy by any means, but it got the job done, and there were probably less teachers there than you would ever think, and it was the students helping the students, so the
Okay.
motivation was self-guiding.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that's very interesting. That the community is literally creating the vibe.
Yes, it totally was. So we had working teachers, like they would work in the industry. So we had two guys, Hugh Greenlee and Roy Hess. So they ran Greenlee Hess, which was a local industrial design firm, and they were connected to a few other of the instructors there that had their own firms doing architecture, or graphic design, or whatever, and they were barely there. They were barely, it was crazy. Like, they would show up there for like an hour at a time and just check in and jingle their change and, yeah, yeah, looks good. And just, hightail it out for lunch. It was like, what are we paying for? So all of the other artists and designers and students, and we were just hard on ourselves. We were like, we kept pushing because you could watch the trend in the industry, and the amount of jobs that were in the field were few and far between,
Yeah,
especially for automotive. But we were always like really serious, and we would screw around as much as anybody else. But when it came time to our work, it's like we could get giddy and funny and jam out and in the studio and stuff. But like when it came down to it, we were all about the work. And we would work till midnight or well beyond. School would close down at midnight. We'd hide out in school and keep working all through the night, so we could just, show up the next day with more.
right, right,
But we always like kind of push each other, and we gave each other to hard times from now and again. There were some people that we didn't get along with. They gave us hard times, we gave it back, and a little friction here and there. But all competitive spirit.
right. You mentioned earlier that you had uh, the issue with the bike where you wrecked.
Yeah.
Had some care
Yes.
from a female.
Right. Yeah, so she took notice on me, and we started hanging out and dating for a little bit, and it was good. But I always was in this mindset. It's like I can't commit myself to a relationship because I'm in a relationship with my work. That is first and foremost what I want to do. Like, I have to prove everyone out there that I can do what I set out to do. And to me, that was the most important thing. And everything else was ancillary to that.
Okay. That's interesting. That's where I wanted to go with that question. Because I wanted to see if, uh, and this is pretty much what I would say 90% of all college students, it's a scenario of we're in a hormonal change again as well in life. And so that interaction between male and female a lot of times starts to take over, and it can create a distance between the work
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
female.
Yep. Yep.
But what I'm hearing from you is still that mindset from being told early on that this isn't going to work. You're going to have to figure something else out to be able to make money in life and to sustain yourself. And you're in this determined mindset of no, I'm doing this. This is gonna work. I'm gonna make sure that I succeed at this.
Yep. Yeah, it was like, do or die,
Yeah,
right? So I had all these other pressures that were going on, and it's like I didn't need a distraction to, and I think she understood too. And it's like, she was a fifth year while I was, coming in, so she knew that she was, a temporary. It was our relationship was temporary,
yeah,
and it wasn't super serious. It was just like, okay, this is cool. We got along great. And I learned a lot about myself and, dating somebody because I never really dated anyone seriously before.
okay.
And I was broke college student. So what can you do on,
Yeah,
$2? Like there's nothing you
exactly.
can do. So, that part was interesting. And I think as I moved through college, I made that clear is that I was very goal oriented. I had to do this because there was nothing else for me. I
Right.
mean, it was, I think that, you get that sense of starving artist. Everybody has that connotation in my mind. In the back of my mind was my parents saying, you got to find a real job. You got to do something with your life and earn some money. And I hear that from people around me, like, oh, you're an artist, and what does that mean? It's like no one really gets it. So you find yourself having to prove it,
Yeah,
time and time again.
yeah, yeah. All right, getting close to graduation, are you seeing opportunities arise for you in terms of job possibilities?
Oof. No, no.
Okay. Okay.
So my junior, yeah, I think it was my junior year. My junior year, I got an internship Chrysler, and I was beside myself happy and earning money for the first time. And my parents couldn't believe it. They were just blown away that I actually got hired as an intern to do what I set out to do. Like
Yeah.
all of a sudden it was like clicking in their head, like, holy shit, I think it's gonna work. I think he's gonna do what he set out to do.
Yeah.
So, at the time there was very few jobs in the industry. It's like
Right.
design was, it was an aging industry, so there weren't like a lot of new people coming into it at the time. It was a unique thing. We were trying to get into because we didn't know anyone that was really into design before. Like I knew my friend Todd's dad was a designer. Aside from that, I didn't know anyone else. Like it was, and the more I look back, I was like, oh, that person's dad was in design. Oh, that person. It's like there was, a construct around you with all these creative elements that you just don't know who the players in the field are.
Yeah.
So you learn it in hindsight. I'm taking what I learned from the internship, and I worked my butt off to try to get to my senior year, and I didn't get another intern after that. I don't think. Maybe it was my third year. Yeah, I didn't get one my junior, one or the other. I can't remember. It was like maybe it was my junior year or something. But anyway, so I had my internship. Then I had like a lull. There's always like this lull because you experience something that's profoundly different, and it's
Yeah.
not like hyper creative. Like you're not doing race cars and sports cars. You're
Right.
doing real things.
Yeah.
You're contributing to a project that somebody wants you to compete with in a team. And we had done various team assignments before, and you learn about being a leader, and it teaches you things about managing people, managing your time. And you right or wrong, you learn from it, right?
Yeah.
So I learned what I needed to be doing after the fact, right? So
Yes.
it's a good experience if you can pick something up and say, okay, well, I can do this better the next time. So the internship after the internship was a little bit of lull because, I just, there was like a slump and have like the creative thing. And I kept thinking about production. I got to do something that's, producible. And then like, I think it was right after that I had a vacation. My cousins invited me down to Aruba with my brother, and said, "Come stay with us for a weekend, and a week, and have a nice break." And I just like had that like moment. Okay, I'm gonna separate myself. I'm gonna cleanse my mind, and I'm gonna focus forward, and try to reinvent myself and become this creative superpower or what have you, right?
Yeah.
So I had it was like a life-changing vacation. It was like it was the first time that I got to separate myself and say, okay, I know what I did right and I know what I've done wrong and I know what I'll need to do. And I kind of reset my priorities, reset my learning, right? And um, took a new approach when I came back. And it was like this internal peace that came over me. It was like
Mm,
I'm putting the trauma and the difficulty aside from whatever relationships I had, and it's like that can't be a contributor to what I have to do.
yeah.
So I came back and I turned it up, man. It was just like fire just around me. It's like there's no stopping me. I have to do this. It's got to be this. And like I just did different things and did more creative things. And I was picking up on, stuff around me. And um just we just lit up. We just a group of us just lit up. And at the senior year, it's like we were doing like crazy amount of work. I mean, the people visiting from GM and from Chrysler were giving us crazy assignments, and we were doing it and plus more. And then like the expectations versus reality was like we just kept one upping each other. My friend Cliff, the guy that I was super tight with, I mean, he and I were just push each other. We just work till like you couldn't work anymore. You just had to pass out and like show up the next day. We literally left the studio an hour before just to go home, shower, clean up, and bring it back. And people were just like they would come in from the other programs and see what was going on because they would know we were presenting and they knew that the work was good and people were visiting. And it was like
Mm.
this crazy energy. It was unfathomable to
Yeah.
try to explain. But you know, um, it was really something else. So by the time that I was ready to graduate, the attrition that I was talking about, the immense attrition was like went from a class of like 44 people down to
Oh, wow.
9 people. So of these 9 people in my class graduating in design, there were 3 jobs in the entire industry. So my class of 9 combined with another school like CCS,
Yeah.
combined with Rhode Island, combined with Art Center,
Yeah.
right? So all of these people competing for 3 jobs. And
Yeah.
here I am. And I'm just like, trying to get myself out there. And, I had been applying since I graduated. I had some friends that got picked up right away out of work, others did not. And it was like my friend Cliff and I both did not get picked. We were the top of our class.
Right.
And, there was some other components that I learned later on in life that, you need to be wary of that we didn't get picked up right away, and it took us a while. Chrysler at the time had a hiring freeze, so when I came back, I had to live with my parents. And man, you talk about conflict. 'Cause then it was like it was on, and it was like again, it was every day. Granted, my father was probably in a happier place, but it still bugged him to no end. It's like here I come back from college, I don't have a job. I set out to do something and I hadn't achieved it yet. So in
Right.
his mind, I'm failing and I need to get a job. And I'm still contributing to my portfolio, and Chrysler has a hiring freeze on. And I think there was a takeover at the time kind of be a plan that never happened. And anyway, Ford wasn't hiring. Ford, sent me a rejection letter and said, you need to be more work on your creativity. It's like,
Oh,
okay,
jeez.
whatever, and GM was not picking up on me either. So I'm like, all right, I'm just going to keep trying for Chrysler. Yeah, and I had received a lot of good input. I had a couple different portfolio reviews and working on my own. And finally the conflict at home reached a pinnacle, and I'm like, I gotta bail, I just gotta go. My buddy was a sculptor at Ford. He's like, hey, I got a place in Birmingham, why don't you come and stay with me until it settles out. So
Okay.
stay with him. He kind of had my back. And literally I think I had an interview in December of 96, and I had graduated in May.
Okay.
So all that time I was working in fabrication, construction, doing various different things, just trying to make ends meet. and I had entertained a job posting for footwear design at the time. It was not really a big thing. And I also had greeting cards. My parents were like, "Why aren't you taking this? Why aren't you taking this?" And I'm like, "No, I got to do automotive. It's just, it's, once and done. I got to start there, and I can always go to this other stuff."
Right.
I ended up getting hired in '97. I started January 21st in '97 at Chrysler, and it was very different at the time. And I was the only guy that got the job that year in at Chrysler,
Oh,
and
wow.
it was the first new hire they had in quite a long period of time. And it was intense because I was this new kid, and no one knew what to do with me, or you wanted to do anything with me.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of dumb ideas, and it was just put the new kid in the corner and let him work it out. So
Right.
it's different.
And with the mindset of I didn't get the opportunity right off like I wanted. And now I've got this lull. Are you is the mental state deteriorating in any way or
Oh, yeah. Of course.
okay.
Of course. I am. You can't help but not be bothered by that stuff. Like
Yeah.
you try to separate yourself. Okay, it's just business. This is the way it's got to be. There's political aspects, there's financial aspects, every single reason, and you try to list it out in your head, and you're like, okay, I'm good enough. I know I've got the talent. I know I got this. I've got the desire to do this. I keep pushing my work forward. I'm listening to what they're asking me to do to modify my portfolio, to be as creative as I can and be mindful of the problems that I have to solve. And at the time, I was even drawing interiors and stuff, and it was like, it's just it was wearing. I'm drawing muscle cars, drawing interiors, drawing exteriors, and I'm faltering on the production based stuff because I don't understand it. I've never had that experience before, and the directors that were interviewing me kind of realized that. And when I did get that job, it was like this amazing sigh of relief. It was
Yeah.
like just the world had been lifted off my shoulders because like I said, it was the mental aspect of that, of all that weighing down. Like, where am I going to get my money? What am I going to
Right.
do for life? I've got this pressure. I get being yelled at all the time that
Yeah.
get out, get a job, earn your money. I got to pay for my car, I got to pay for gas, got to pay for insurance. I have to find a way to keep this going, right?
Yeah.
And I was you get down on yourself. You're like, I must not be good enough. I must not be this, or it must not be that. And you measure yourself, right?
Yeah.
I've always tried not to measure myself against other things I see, other people or whatever, but you at that point you can't help yourself, right? So when it did actually happen, it was just absolutely amazing. It was the best feeling I ever had. It was like, oh my God, like I did this.
Yeah.
So I think my parents read this article a number of years ago. It says the comparison of getting a job in the design industry is like getting and being a successful designer is like getting a spot in the NBA.
Yeah.
It is that cutthroat. It is that demanding. We are a top percentile of artists, functional artists, industrial artists, whatever. We are a small, super small part of the corporation entirely. So it's like a miracle within a miracle that we survived this far. So
Yeah. It truly is. It is just like being a pro athlete in the automotive industry. It's ridiculously insane how many people are good enough, but they just don't make it.
right.
Um, and you getting that opportunity and the relief that wells over you, which I felt the energy just in you saying it in that moment. It was like I could feel that weight lifted off of you instantaneously,
Oh man.
which it it's wild because it changes the perspective. It changes the mindset. It renews the spirit within you. But what I want to point out for the audience as well is the fact that you still didn't give up on that idea of this is what I want to do.
Absolutely.
You didn't take the greeting card job opportunity. You didn't go into shoe design. You still held out for the potential of getting this job working in the automotive industry, and you got it. Now you're in it. What is it like being the new kid on the block in a multi-million
Oh my
dollar
God, it was
corporation?
insane. Again, they didn't really know what to do. I mean, they gave me some scale models to do, and I did some components for vehicles. I did some exterior handles for minivan. I did some wheels and stuff. I did some fascias and some intrepids and this sort of thing, and started doing some contribution for that. So I was this entity that they didn't really know what to do with, and I guess like I didn't hit it off with some people right away either, because it's like the old ideas, and they
Right,
had their way of doing things, and it's like I wanted to contribute, and I'm like, hey, let's get drawing, let's do this, and it's like people were like,
right.
so it was difficult, and it was difficult to make friends there. And I made a few friends, or knew a few people there from my internship, and they kind of took me under their wing. And I met a few people that also took me under their wing and gave me advice, gave me some mentorship, and some good feedback here and there. And then at an early point in my career, literally I was in the exterior studios for, I'd say, 6 months, and my director pulls me and he says, "Hey, how would you feel about going out to the advanced design facility out in California?" I'm like, "Yeah, it sounds cool." He's like, "Well, we need to know within 72 hours." I'm like, "Well, what do you mean?" He's like, "Well, we want to send you out there next week." I'm like, "What?" So I ended up going out to Chrysler Pacifica, which was in Carlsbad at the time. And funny enough, it was right around the corner from Haro. I had no idea.
Wow.
So, so anyway, I went out there. I spent some time doing advanced design work with those guys, Michael Castiglione, Bill Tragowski, Kevin Verdun, to name a few, and just some incredible designers, modelers, sculptors, fabricators. And I learned so much. I learned pretty much all of my VisCom out there, because I sucked at VisCom before. And I developed a style, and I Kevin Verdun had this way of drawing, and the guy was like hyper precise. The guy could render anything, and it would take forever to do a drawing, but it was immaculate. It was like this unbelievable piece of artwork that was done. And these guys were responsible for doing so many of the show cars in the early '90s. Out there. So I think I don't know how the opportunity arose for me to go out there, but I was the first, new guy out there in a great period of time. And I really enjoyed it. And when I came back, the what typically would happen at the time was people would go out there, and then they'd leave, or they'd stay out there. They'd leave Chrysler, or they'd stay out there and
Yeah,
go
yeah.
to like Honda or Toyota or something else, or something. So, and I was the more I thought about it, like, no, I want to come back. They're like, "You want to come back?" I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Now I can contribute. Now I can, use what I've learned out here, and do something more serious. Like, show cars are great, but if I can't do a production car, then what good am I as a designer?" So I ended up going into advanced, and then I had a really difficult time with that, because I was still around some people that didn't feel like, I don't know. I had one guy that just every time it was like oil and water with me and him. Like, I just didn't get along with him, and I had a few people looking out for me, and they saw the turmoil and that sort of thing. But I was still learning. I was still a sponge and picking up stuff, and I started contributing more and more, and then got into I did some more scale models, and then it went into, actually, I think it was, oh, I got into Jeep right away. I think it was. I got into Jeep after that, and I was doing advanced models. And what happened was I ended up doing concept vehicles. My stuff got selected for concept vehicles. I also got selected to do exteriors. So I fathered the Commander, Jeep Cherokee, the original Jeep Renegade, not the little boxy one, but the really poofy one. It was done before my time, but I'm the one that gave it its, off-road, flares and whatnot. Anyway, so I started really being very prolific in the Jeep studio. The amount of work that we did in there was incredible. We were a really small studio. And, at that time it was like, I'm finding a home. I've got some good friends. I got some other new people that had joined up, and, we're pals. We're going out to lunch and stuff. And I was getting in my happy place for sure. And the more I did, like I had a like a VP, an executive VP. He didn't really like me as a person, but he always picked my work, and it was like the craziest thing. It was like, all right, I know you got a problem with me, I got a problem with you, but you're picking my work, so I got no problem there.
Yeah.
So, but doing show cars and production cars and authoring all this stuff and contributing to the bottom line was like the greatest satisfaction. Seeing people enjoy the product and getting involved in launching vehicles and then doing cost saving stuff and doing show car interiors at the time had become a thing that I was really interested in. And then I think it was like I had done the Hurricane interior, the Jeep Rescue interior, and then I competed for other exteriors. But then I just something struck a chord, and I think it was like right around the time of 2007. It was like my busiest. So I mentioned I went to Cleveland Institute of Art. I was also teaching there on the weekends, automotive design. I'd go down and help teach, and I was contributing to that. And then I also ran the internship at Chrysler in like I maybe it was like 2007. I was finishing up the Jeep Cherokee at the time. I was doing a show car as well. I think I logged in like 78 or 82 hours in 1 week. My boss is like, "There's no way I can even write this down on a piece of paper." He's like, "Just stop." So I was spread pretty thin, and my wife was had enough. She's like, "This is too much."
Right.
So I got really interested in doing show car interiors, but then like a chord struck, and I said, we got to be able to produce one of these things, not this like roto molded plastic, play school stuff. And the time the corporation started to get really serious about doing interiors, and I'm like, well, I'd like to be able to implement what I have. So when I was designing the first generation Demon show car interior, I started learning about production and what feasibility we could do, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to be able to execute this now. I'm like, that to me is like the ultimate goal is if you can execute your sketch from a concept and it's close to that concept, then you are successful, right? You've managed all of the meetings, the workload, the build, and worked with engineering teams and found compromise in order to get your, the design into production. So we started formulating this interior group, and I got chosen to be in the interior team and working on Dodge Charger and the next generation Charger and next generation 300, which was like 2008, 9 timeframe, right when we were in bankruptcy. That
Okay.
was a difficult time as well in my career, just because there
Sure.
was no certainty that we'd have our jobs.
Yeah.
So and it was pretty intense, to say the least. We again, it was a small group of us, but there was just a lot of young people. We just all kind of like looked at each other like, are we going to do this? Can I trust you? Can you
Right.
trust me? We
Yeah.
looked
Yeah.
at each other on a table and we're like, yeah, let's go. All the people that maybe weren't as serious or weren't as committed to Chrysler as a unit, as a company, had left. They took their voluntary separation money and hightailed it out. Some people went to GM, some people went to Ford, some people left the state, some people left the industry.
Yeah.
So there was a small band of us together that kind of grouped together, and we put in like insane hours and insane thought into generating the next Charger and 300 interiors and creating world class stuff. And I remember having this conversation with my boss, and my boss was, he was a fairly young guy. I say fairly young guy. He was like in his early 40s at the time, and there was nobody with experience around us to do these things. We'd never done an interior before. Like, I'd just done show cars, and we're all joking around with each other. And I said, I want to do this, whatever, and but how do I do this? He's like, "You're a big boy, go figure it out," and just walks away. I'm like, damn it. But it was, I think that my schooling and self-regulation, self-management, and that sort of thing kind of guided me and said, okay, I can figure this out. I can do this. Like, I've done this before. I've managed myself. I can convince people. We can work together as a team. We had some pretty diehard car people in there that just wanted to make awesome stuff. And, through proper convincing conversation and relationship building events, we just did it. We just figured it out. I made great friends with engineers and that respected me and I respected them, and we worked together to solve some pretty complex things. And that's how the new stuff was born. We
Right.
just kind of buckled down and figured it out, and the company paid the bill. And what's incredible is that we have an executive VP that is a car guy, and he's like family. He's like the dad, of all of
Right.
us. He's
Yeah.
like protective of his design family.
That's cool.
It's made it amazing, as you know a trip through my career, right?
You threw out a comment and kind of glossed past it real fast, and I want to back you up in time a little bit.
Okay.
And that was how this transition was affecting your wife.
Yeah.
But we didn't, but we didn't know that the wife came into play at a
Oh
certain
yeah.
point.
So yeah, I mean, maybe I glossed over that part.
You
So
did, you did.
I
Let's
I
let's
met
back
my
up.
wife literally right when I started my career at Chrysler.
Okay.
And we were introduced to as a mutual friend, and she is also an artist, and she's
Yeah.
amazing. And I was blown away by her, just her being, just her
Yeah.
being. She's bright. She's amazing. She's just talented, and she's got a way about her. And like I just knew when she walked in, it was like wow, like she's got stature, and people recognize her. She's friendly. She's got a great smile. She's warm, and she's just got it. She's got that magic, right?
Yeah.
So we started dating right away. And funny enough, when I went out to Chrysler Pacifica, I said, "Hey, they want to move me out there for a couple months. You want to come with?" And she's like, "Okay." It's like, and we
Uh,
just started dating, So
right.
she came out there with me for a little bit, but she's weathered the storm the whole way through. She's also been in the toy industry, the illustration industry. She does coloring books, now adult coloring books. And she does amazing stuff. And it's like it's great to have somebody that is creative in a creative family that understands the contemplative stuff that you go through as an artist, and to be able to give you guidance. And
For
she
sure.
keeps me in line,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
that
for
part
sure.
is good. But yeah, she's absolutely amazing. But at the time we had young kids, and was earning the extra coin, with the overtime, which was helpful. Um, and it was a lot. I mean, during that period of time, she was like, "Okay, Mister, like, take it easy, like, reel it back a little bit. You're gonna kill yourself, on
Yeah.
this whole job deal." She's like, "There's more to life than just work."
Right.
So,
Right. Yeah,
but
that's very interesting. And it's a huge blessing when you're able to find someone like that who knows you're talented, knows you're good at what you do, knows you want to excel, but also reassures you that, hey, uh, there's more to that than you going to that office every day and working on these vehicles because
absolutely.
we're over here and we need you to be a part of what we got going on too.
Yep. Yep.
Um, with having the children and starting to form that family unit, um, what's your mindset like in terms of, all right, I know what it was like for me growing up as a kid and what I had to deal with.
Yeah.
Now I've got my own. What's your mindset about the potential of what kind of environment you're going to create for them?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think my wife was recognizing that I was broken, like
Okay.
I started off and I was raised by wolves, as she says.
Yeah,
That there were some things that I needed help with, and to be a better person. We went for therapy and stuff like young couples do, and you're just trying to like feel each other out and stuff. But as the kids were aging, I was always there. I was always like competent and trying to participate, and dropping the kids off at daycare and all that fun stuff, and playing with them and whatnot. It's as we had very difficult kids. My oldest had sleep issues, would only sleep like 2 hours at a time, and
Oh,
he was very
wow.
colicky. It was horrible as an infant. So we both dealt with that. But she was doing her master's degree, so it was like we would trade off, and it was like she'd literally hand me my son, and she'd go take a nap, and I'd like try to keep him occupied. But parenting is there's no rule book, right? I mean,
Right.
as a parent, it's like you learn by your experience, good, bad, or indifferent, right? Is what you want to be as a parent or how you hope to be. And you make mistakes, you make errors, you try your best and only your best, right? And there's days where you can't ever have the right thing to say or to do as a parent when your kid's going through a difficult time or something, and you can only try to relate to them and to bolster them up. But I've always been very supportive of my kids and whatever they wanted to do and stuff, and always been there. There was a time I've had back issues, for a long time. I was in a bad car wreck in 2001 before my kid was born. That kind of was like started the whole thing, but you realize how short life really is and that you want to share it with others. And my wife, who's absolutely amazing, and I just wanted to just have this amazing family with her because I knew she would be such an amazing wife and mother, and that she could fix what was wrong with me and help me through that and
Yeah.
make me a better person. I think everybody goes through life and you want to be a better person, and you find that person that creates that balance for you,
Yeah.
and that partner that helps you become stronger and better in every which way. So that is my person.
Nice. Nice. That's amazing. I'm happy for you that you have that, and that's developed into what it is for you. If we can, let's go back to this accident that you're talking about, and because there's a place that I want to go with that bit of information because I know what it's like to be injured at certain periods of time in my personal life.
Yep.
And I want to kind of give the audience a glimpse into that if you're willing to share some about that.
Yep, yep. So, bad things happen. Everyone knows that, right?
Yeah.
And bad things happen to everybody, and you never know what's lurking around the corner. In I think it was what was it, 2000, and maybe it was 2002. I think it was 2002. I had a vivid dream at night. My dad came into my dream. My dad had passed away just a year before, and he was in my dream, and he says, "Be prepared."
Wow.
I'm like, what does that mean? Right.
Right.
So I didn't really think about it, it's like, oh, that's weird, went about my day. And I had a Datsun 240Z at the time. Took my Datsun out, and it was Sunday, if I recall. Went out and went shopping, came back with some food, and I'm headed back to the house. And I'm literally a quarter mile from my house, at the street, the side street. And I'm approaching an intersection, and off to my right, I see an ambulance flick on its light as it enters the intersection. And the light had already turned green for me. So I stopped, right? Because here's this ambulance. And then all of a sudden I see the ambulance jam on its brakes. And I look up in my mirror, and right behind me is a Jeep
Oh,
coming right at me. So I got rear-ended at 50 miles an hour.
oh,
So my car literally leapt through the intersection, and everything kind of, your body records things at like milliseconds, and it seems like a long stretch of time. So I could hear metal separating, I could hear things crunching, and I was doing things at the same time as things were happening. Like, I remember looking up in the mirror and dropping my hands from the wheel, and holding on to I had a racing harness in this car,
okay.
and letting go of the shifter. And literally, when the vehicle landed, I can remember like snapping my head and then just slamming my foot on the brake, and coming to a rest. And like, I just, you see stars right away, and I knew something was wrong. And it was like, it was like, suddenly there were people around me, and they're like, "Are you okay? And can you pull over, can you start the car, move the car over?" And the car was a mess. I couldn't start the car or anything. And the police had already arrived, and the ambulance was there trying to help me out now.
Right.
So it was just a fluke thing. But the car, shrunk about like at least an inch and a half, if not longer. But the doors were shingled over the quarters, and I couldn't open the doors, so I had to crawl out. But I had like numbness and tingling in all my extremities. What I didn't realize what happened was I had a really bad whiplash injury. I ended up getting carted to the hospital. He put you in a neck brace and everything. I had to take painkillers and stuff and muscle relaxers for a while. And this is at the time I was contributing to, excuse me, a concept car. I was contributing to the Jeep Rescue of
Uh,
all things, right? So, but thankfully I was physically right, in all appearances I was unaltered, but there was something else going on. So I had numbness and tingling that lasted for at least 6 months, and I couldn't hold a pen. And as a designer, it just, it scares the living crap out of you that you
yeah,
can't hold a pen and I can't concentrate. And I'm like, I had this neck brace on because I've got this wicked injury, and like I can't feel my pinky and ring finger, and I'm like having trouble using my hands, and it's like, this sucks.
yeah.
So they called me Vicodin at work for a little while.
Oh, wow.
So, but eventually I got out of that and I started, rehabbing and stuff. But I fought back injury after that, and after back injury. But I always remembered that, be prepared. I remember that, and it was just, again, I can't tell it any other way. It's a freak thing that happened.
Yeah,
And looking back at the accident, it's like I was hit dead on. I wasn't hit at an angle. I was in an old car that should have by all means been crumpled up into a ball. I was had a race harness. My seat broke. The throttle linkages broke. The gas tank was literally right behind the bumper, but the bumper was flattened. It was going the opposite way.
right,
And I had a spare tire that was in there that kind of helped take some of the brunt of the force. But it's like, if you took any of those components out, anything, it would have been a much different outcome for me,
right.
most likely. So they thought I hit the steering wheel, and there it's like, or hit the glass, and nothing. But I walked away from that one, but had some long standing effects after that.
And with those long-standing effects, um, chronic pain has a way of affecting the mental state of any individual. What is that doing for you moving forward now that you're also experiencing these functional difficulties and
Yeah.
trying to do the job that you're doing? Um, how is that affecting your mind, and what is it psychologically doing um, in that instance?
It was tough. It took a while to rehabilitate myself, to the level of drawing, and I kept, at it and doing PT and stuff. And that part seemed to be okay, but the long lasting effects from the back, it put me on pause, and it's like I couldn't do the things I enjoyed, or spending, this was literally before my kids, so it was before any of that. But as things moved on, I started having more and more issues as the years went by, and some of it was due to inactivity, right?
Yeah,
So every kind of component. But um I think it was like, it didn't really dawn on me that it was that bad. I didn't get addicted to painkillers or anything like that. It was like, it was over. I was frustrated more than anything that I couldn't do anything to recoup any losses. I mean, I the car is the car. I ended up buying it back. I got another one, that part of things. But um I was scared to drive. I was just scared, so that was different, because being a car guy, it's like you want to drive, you want to,
yeah, yeah,
be part of it. But I was, I was fearful that I was going to get injured again, and that I knew that things were fragile.
yeah,
Um, but I think at that point it was like, I want to have a family. I absolutely need to have a family. Waiting too long, like having conversation with friends, like, what are you waiting for, man? Like, just get on with life. Like, take this as a sign, that life has to change. That you've got to enjoy it. You can't. You'll never be fully prepared for kids. You'll never be fully prepared for what life is going to throw at you. Just start living.
yeah.
So that was it.
That's interesting too, because again, I've got these focal points in the background of these tricks in the air on the BMX bike, and that freedom of expression in those images, and uh, that fearlessness to do those tricks and to create those tricks is it's necessary. Now you've experienced something that's thrown this huge amount of fear in you that kid is no longer. That fearless kid is no longer.
Yeah, trauma physically and mentally changes you one way, shape, or another. It changes your perception on things, and you know, I think that it it made me recognize that there's risk when you walk out the door,
Yeah,
right? And what are you waiting for anything, right?
right.
Don't wait.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so let's move forward again. 2008-ish is kind of where we were at. There's this shift
Mhm.
taking place within the company
Yeah,
structures.
yeah.
And moving forward, you've worked on the Charger, the 300, which I remember when the 300 came out. That was like everybody was like, "Whoa, what is this?"
You should have seen it in the studio. Oh my God.
Yeah. What is this? This is like a the way I was perceiving the reception of it was like it was a Bentley, but at an affordable price point. Um, stylistically, so to speak, may not have been the perception of what you guys were trying to do, but just on the outside as a consumer, I was like, whoa, the lines of this car are not what we've seen in a while
Right.
in the industry for a new product. What is it like transitioning through that type of restructuring of the company as a creative? You said you got you guys, you were all together, you were
Yeah,
clicked
yeah,
up.
yeah.
You were
Mhm.
clicked up, you were synced up, you knew we can go through this, but how did you go through it?
So it was interesting because the first generation 300, when that was done, it was in the era of front wheel drives,
Yeah,
and engineering really wanted to make another front wheel drive car, and we were all benchmarking the Audis and the BMWs. Were like, this is where it's at, rear wheel drive. And, there was literally a line that was drawn in the sand for the design staff and the rest of the company. And fortunately, we had Tom Gill at the time, and John Hurlitz, and Trevor Creed and a few other people. They basically said, listen, the 300 rear wheel drive has to be, what we're going to do. The other proposition is a losing proposition. So we all kind of planted that in our head, like, you need to make a stand for what's right. In the end, it's like, where people are going to talk about something, right? And it is history. It's automotive history, and it happens in silence. It happens in the shadows. It's like,
right.
history takes place whether you know it or not, and
Yeah,
you're either part of it or you're not.
yeah,
So, and we kind of framed it like that. And that 300 that had come out, at the time, it was kind of a plastic interior. And then when we redid the cars in the '08 to 10 timeframe, it was like, a period of dire need where the government was trying to bail us out and stuff. And we had divorced from Daimler, which was
yeah,
a great divorce,
yeah,
and become one with Cerberus, and that was interesting. But we're all car guys, and we all got it. We're like, what do we want to be when we grow up? Like, what do we
yeah,
want to do? Like, what is going to make us all happy to be a part of? What is going to be the best product that's out there? And it was science based, right? And it was also emotional based, but you had to prove it with science, and there was, proof. I always say this to all my designers. It's like, as a designer, you're like a lawyer. You need burden of proof. You need to provide evidence as to why we want to go in one direction versus what the rest of the corporation wants us to do. And you need to make it absolutely unanimous that that's the only reason why we have to do this thing. You have to take your emotion out of it, keep it in check. So a lot of us, we were practicing at keeping our emotions in check, and banding together to formulate this company ideal of what the interiors group could be. Dodge and SRT could be. And fortunately, we had Ralph with us that was just like this champion, and you just the effervescence of cardom, right? I mean, this guy is just, he is such a bright spot to be around, and he's so motivated. And he's got a lot going on in his head as far as like the corporation
Yeah.
goes,
Yeah.
but he's still relatable. He's still like a car guy. You can still talk to him. You walk up to him and talk cars, and it's like, or he'll come by and, chat for a few. It's like, drink beers with you. It's like, what CEO does that? It's like, he's a regular person, and that's why, all of this stuff is so rewarding to be around. It's like it's a big design family. So as you're part of this family, it's like, it's not personal when they give you some advice or some pointers. It's like it's about doing the right thing, and it's not. It's just that. So
Yeah, for sure.
but it was cool to always be a part of doing that stuff, and contributing. And little did we know what aspect or what that would lead to as an industry. We had a feeling it could be really cool. We had no idea that it was going to be, with so much street cred, that we had this design authority and so much responsibility. It was crazy. I mean, we had quite a bit of power, even as just designers or senior designers. We were basically operating as managers or senior managers, and we had our backing all the way up, and it was intense. So we figured stuff out.
Nice. Nice. I want to move forward even more a little bit in terms of the Dodge stuff. There was this shift in mindset within um, the company to, in a way, revert to the old muscle car with redoing the Challenger, um, doing some more stuff with the Charger, and creating this new resurgence of what a muscle car could be. And the reason I remember this so specifically was because when I was a kid, my uncle had a Challenger. And from the time that I saw that thing, I was just like, "Oh my gosh, that's so cool." I thought my uncle was cool anyways, but I saw the car and I was like, "Oh,
Right.
that's cool, cool." But also too, Motley Crue got involved and part of
Oh
the
my
the
God.
branding.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you would see um, Richard Rawlings coming into the picture as well at a point in time from Gas Monkey
Hmm.
Garage. Can you explain what possibly was the mindset and what was the vibe of that taking place?
Oh, you know, the strange things that marketing does,
Right.
they operate in a very different frequency.
Yeah.
But I think, let's say car guys recognize car guys,
Yeah.
right? We all recognize each other and the importance of things. And we've always had a thing with rock and roll. Like years ago, we did Aerosmith, and we were working on the Jeep Commander at the time, and the guys from Aerosmith were there late at night, and we were working late, and literally Steven Tyler walks up to the glass and does this, and I'm standing right there like, oh my God, it's Steven Tyler.
Right.
So I think we're all, kind of intrinsically involved with music one way or another, like in the shadows, or what have you,
Yeah.
ancillary, right?
Yeah.
Most of us are into music, listen to music while we create or what have you. But these connotations or associations we have with this stuff, it's like, I think Kickstart My Heart is like this, the car guys, battle cry or something like
Yeah.
that, and roadkill, and some of those events. But I think that, people very high up had this energy level, that they wanted to communicate that we are just a bunch of car guys here, and we just want to make cool stuff. And we've always had this mantra of, if you build it, they will come. Like, we've had many of these conversations with engineering over the years, and like, it takes money to make money. You
Yeah.
have to put in what you think you're going to get out plus more. And, I can remember being in many arguments with engineering teams and saying, like, why would we do this? It's going to cost us X amount of dollars. And why would we make this color? And this doesn't make any sense. It's like, it's not about making sense sometimes. It's the emotional component. It's
Yeah.
fulfilling the fantasy of this person's reality, that this is something exotic. This is part of their fantasy. This is their alternate lifestyle. This is their escape. There's
Yes.
that word again, right?
Yes. Yes.
Is this is their escape. This is how they want to be free. And America's freedom is in the automobile, right? And that's
Right.
your expression. And that's how people see you too. It's like a status symbol thing, right?
Yeah.
So people fulfill this fantasy of these cars and what they think they're going to do for them. Is it, am I going to become part of this group? Or, is this person going to respect me more? I pull up and, at a show and say, oh, hey, that's a really cool car. And, it's a sense of accomplishment. When these associations are made with these musical giants or what have you, and to bring that energy into what we do, and how that translates to sales, there's harmony there. It's just, it's an unknown harmony. How they pulled it together, I don't know, but I'm all for it.
Right. Right.
And
And
that one is cool.
and what was that like real or getting the realization of uh hey, we get to reinvent this classic.
Yeah. So I had done a lot of research when I was doing the Charger interior, and I'm a guy that came up with driver oriented for Dodge, and I did a lot of research, and it was like, because I'm an enthusiast, right? It's like, you don't have a name like Charger or Challenger, and it's an American car company, and not be able to do something with it. You have to cater to that crowd. You have to cater to those people that put that classic onto a pedestal, and it is something that's unique. It's evoking an emotion, some kind of childhood memory. It's like you're tugging at their heartstrings and their purse strings.
Yeah.
That's what you need to do as a designer. So I had to go back in history and examine what made Dodge Charger most successful. Where was the most sales we did? What was the design like? What was the execution like? Like, what, how can we move forward? What are the competitors that I'm competing against now? And put the science behind the reasoning for the drawing.
Right.
And the funniest thing is, I tell this to people. It's like, doing the Dodge Charger interior was like, it was literally the third pen sketch that I did in interiors. It was the third sketch. That was
Wow.
it. And it was like, it was that obvious to people. It's like, yep, we're doing that.
Wow.
And it was like, I did, five others, but it's like, it didn't have the same traction. It had that special something. But we all, like, we were we had this like long process. We've always had a long process, and it's very like, you do research, you do drawings, you get a package, you do this. This was very different. It's like, we just stumbled upon the design. It just like happened. It's like, yeah, that's right. Let's get things going. Let's, put it in clay. Let's put it into data. And it's like, things just evolved really quickly. And it was like, we had an extended development because we were in bankruptcy and everything. But
Yeah.
um, it was a very exciting time, and people just, kind of got it. And there was a time. I mean, I'll tell you a few key stories of all that. But there was a time where they really wanted to make this like a rental car, where it was going to be competing with like the Toyotas, and they wanted a tan interior and like taupe and stuff. And it's like, we came in with our color and materials team, and LaCheryl, she's absolutely amazing. And we did all this benchmarking on colors. We wanted to do a red interior for the cars, and at the time it was like the banality of gray was, a strong foothold in the industry. And you saw like Corvette did red, or Mustang did some red, and everyone else was like, no, it's going to be gray. And I'm like, we need to push for red. And finally, it's like, she pushed hard, and the person who was above her at the time was pushing against her, but she won out. It was, we campaigned for red.
Yeah.
They marketing was convinced it was always going to do like less than 2% or 1%. It was going to cost us money and never sell, and all this stuff. And literally, we got it pushed through. Ralph helped push it through. We got it through, and suddenly it just starts. It catches on fire after we do the car, right? And it's like, it goes from 5 to 7 to 13% to 26%. The marketing guys were arguing with us, came up to us like, that was a great job. I knew that would work really well. We sold every one of those things. That was the right decision. It's like, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
It's part of that, if you build it, they will come sort of philosophy. But, I think all the players in the field had the same kind of feeling is that you needed to portray the passion for the automobile in the same sense, and you struck all the right nerves because there were just hardcore people that were there, and that we made it right. There was so much more science going on behind the scenes of executing those cars the way we wanted them to, and making them the best that they could be, and pulling all these incredible art ad campaigns and stuff, and associations, and the stuff that we did,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, just it was it, my Ralph always says this. He's like, "Those are the good old days." He's like, when they were happening, he's like, "These are going to be the good old days." I'm telling you right now. He's like, "These will be the good old days. They'll never be better."
Yeah.
And it continues to be that. And I have been so happy. I mean, it's been trying, and it's been difficult, and it's been challenging,
Yeah.
but I've been happy because we have this incredible work family there, and everyone, we all give a shit, and that's
Yeah.
kind of the mantra.
Yeah. That's very cool. It's very cool to have that kind of environment with you. And I mean, Lord knows the world has watched the Chrysler go through its iterations of getting bought out and
Every few years,
changed
yep.
up and shifted around. Um, One of the things that I've had the pleasure of experiencing since you and I have met is you've done a couple shows lately
Mhm.
with your artwork. And you had said that it's been a while since you've been able to do a show, but there's this almost a need to an extent to get back into showcasing the artist that is Dan Zimmermann.
Mhm.
What is the mindset and what is the internal pull that's drawing you in that direction?
So, I think I started drawing maybe habitually, maybe as a hobby, sometime in the 2008 timeframe. It kind of started up. While things were really sketchy at work, they weren't paying for overtime, so I needed to earn some extra scratch. So I started doing side jobs. I was doing toys, right? I did some GI Joe die-cast things. I did some other, die-cast things and some toys. And a friend of mine who worked at Mattel sent me some stuff to do. And forging ahead was like, this is interesting to me. And I did some other industrial design work. I did some stuff for gaming. I did some, sketching for swing line staplers and such, and like did all this freelance stuff. And I was like, this is rewarding because it's not PowerPoint, it's not surface data. It's rewarding in a different way.
Yeah,
Art is a catharsis to some kind of mental freedom from rules or regulations, and it's a way to take a fresh approach at things. So I had that operating in the back of my mind, and in I'd say in the 2011 time frame, maybe 2000, somewhere in there, 13 or something, my back started getting really bad again, and just I was kind of laid up, so I'd start drawing again, and doing that sort of thing, and it was just coming back as far as like being able to draw again, and just for my own sanity, right, just
yeah,
as something to do rather than just watch TV. So I put it on the back burner, and in 2016 my back got really bad, and I absolutely needed to have surgery to correct it, and it was so bad, and was like just occupying my time drawing and watching TV and such, and that was fine. My friend had convinced me, my friend Chris Piscatelli had convinced me. He's like, dude, why don't you do Autorama? Like, you're building up enough work, like make some prints of this stuff and come and hang out with me in the down in the basement of Autorama. I'm like, yeah, okay. So as I was healing and recuperating, I was creating all this work, and I'm like, all right, cool, let's do this. And put together my first show in like 2017, or yeah, I think it was 2017 at the time. And just was selling artwork, and I'm like, well, wait a second, I can make money at this, and this is kind of neat, like people are digging it.
yeah,
So I did even more the next year. And then to me, It's what's interesting about, this line of work in the automotive hobby is you get custom car builders that come your way and they want something
Yeah.
and they want to be different, right? And some people come into you and I see this time and time again. It's like even when we were displaying at Autorama back in 17, it's like people come up to you and say, I don't see any 62 AMC Ramblers in here. No, because no one bought 62 AMC Ramblers. Why would I draw it? It's like you want to draw the most popular things. People always want you to do like a character of their car or portrait of the car, and it's like, I equate it to being a cartoonist, right? A cartoonist at an event. It's like, and I don't know if you remember this, but in the 70s and 80s in the comic books, like at the end of the comic book, they had the last page and they had this turtle in the print. It says, "Draw a Tippy." If you can draw a Tippy, you may be a successful artist. So
Yeah.
I always equate the question of trying to do like an automotive portrait to drawing Tippy. I do not want to draw Tippy. I do not want to draw your car because I don't have that kind of creative freedom in doing something like that. However, there are the occasion of people that come your way that want to build a custom car and they want to do something that's, it's going to be more like a concept car. It's, a competition for, the best stuff. And occasionally I get people that reach out to me, hey, I want to do a custom car interior. This is what I want. This is what I'm looking for. I'll pay you X amount of dollars. And they're not scared by your price. And your
Right.
price is based on your experience and your prowess and whatnot. And, what you can contribute. And, my price is my price. And it's not like, and if I see the work that's going to be, let's say, enthusiastically received, it's going to give me creative freedom and it's going to kind of build me up as motivation and as far as like my experience level. I'm going to take that job, right? So I'm going to
Yeah.
do this hot rod work on the side. A couple years back I got approached about doing a Riddler car, the Riddler interior. So I contributed sketches to that. Now, it still hasn't seen the light of day, so I can't show it. I can't talk about it, right?
Right.
So, but it was rewarding because it's more like conceptual, and it's like you get down on that level of fabricating, and you have to make something that's plausible, right? In by that industry. So I got a job like that, and then I was doing a doodle one time. I think it was in the summer after going to a roadkill event. I was like 18 or something like that. And I saw this little 024 Omni pickup and I, drew it with an engine in the background or whatever and, posted up. Well, suddenly, I think David Freiberger uh, tagged somebody in it and sent me a message and like, I need you to hook up with so and so from Arrington Performance. And it turned out I forged this relationship with this guy. I did a rendering based on that, and it was like a V8 with Hillborn injections. It was a custom pickup. One of those what do you call them? Rampage pickup. And I'm like, man, you need to call it something else other than a Rampage. I'm like, why not Outrage? Because the engine's out back. And the guy's like, I love it. He's like, I did the Outrage artwork.
Nice.
So it's like on occasion I'll find a few like little scraps of things like that, and it's enough to kind of get the juices flowing. So that's where I think the energy comes from with doing all the artwork is getting your name out there, being exposed, and creating a buzz around what you're doing, and seeing some of the bizarre creations. Because let's face it, it's easier to push a pen on paper and then actually building or fabricating that one thing or one
Sure.
crazy idea that
Yeah.
no one knows how to do just yet. So, but at least it inspires people, hopefully, to do something else.
Yeah. And I think that's the key is the inspiration. As well as the own one's own ability to express outside of the day to day, right? You get to do something that's a little bit different, kind of let the hair down, open up the wings, and start flying again. And I'm looking at these BMX pictures behind you again, seeing this capture of this air trick going on, and I think that's what art allows creatives to do. It allows them to just go sky high and get caught up in those moments. With where you're at currently, do you have anything that's on the horizon that you're contemplating? I think I want to go in this direction next and expand a little bit in this way.
Yeah. Well, I have a lot of things that are coming next, but there's always seeds, right? There's seeds
Yeah.
planted all over the place, and you choose to sow the seeds or not, right? So, I you just want to touch on one brief thing from like 2021.
Okay.
So in 2021, yeah, I'd been posting artwork on Instagram and everything, and doing artwork and doing what I do, just getting my name out there. And lo and behold, I see that Bob Harrow is liking my artwork. Bob Harrow is the founder of Harrow Bikes, also the godfather of freestyle. Right.
Yeah.
So eventually, he and I connected, and he's like, "Hey, I want you to do some artwork for me." And I'm like, "What?" So he's like, "Here's my number. Give me a call. We'll chat." I call him. I'm like, "First of all, I have so many questions, but secondly, what can I do for you?" And like inside, there's like little 14-year-old kid that's jumping up and down. You did it! You did it! It's
Yes.
like, holy cow, what a full circle, right? As this BMX legend and doing what you've done all these years, it's like this guy takes notice, and he's always been like this uh, role model of mine. So he kind of got me into doing T-shirts and doing artwork for him. So I've done a bunch of stuff for him that's managed on apparel. And we did a trade. I did some work and I got some swag out of it. And I'm all down for some trades now and again.
Yeah.
But to me, it was like more like I'm working with this hero of mine, and
Yeah.
like the cost is the cost, and it doesn't matter to me. It's like it's more about the fact that I'm doing something that I set out to do. It's that realization of that goal. So
Oh,
I did that artwork with him, and it's been pretty successful. I hope for him, Bob, if you're watching, I hope it continues to do well, and I hope it can do more. But it led into other conversations. I met up with a local owner of a BMX shop here, Albies, and he says,
yeah.
"When are you going to do shirt for me?" I'm like, "Okay." I'm like, "We can trade."
Right.
I'm like, "I need this wheel ace stuff." And this little BMX wheel is like, "All right." He's like, "I'll take that piece of art." I'm like, "Cool." So we did a trade, and I did a shirt for him, and I got a wheel laced up, and I'm happy, and he's happy.
Nice.
So it kind of got me thinking about apparel as the relationship started with Bob, and then it's kind of spun and created something else. And as I mentioned before, my wife does coloring books.
Right.
And I'd always tease like, "Hey, maybe I'll do a coloring book, or maybe I'll do a book or something." And after this latest experience of my injury, I had been doing a lot more artwork in the most recent time frame. I've got a substantial amount of materials. A couple years ago, even like last year, 2 years ago, somebody said, "Why don't you make a book with your work?" And I'm like, "Wow, maybe." So this year, talking to my wife after I recovered from this surgery, or two surgeries, my wife's like, "Do you know how hard that is?" She's like, having done it herself and self-published, she's like, "That's literally like months off your life." She's like, "When do you want to do it for?" And I'm like, this was in January. I'm like, "March." She's like, "No." And it was like there wasn't even a millisecond of space in there. Having done it herself, she's like, "No." It's just like, that's just maybe next year. Yeah. But I think that's on the horizon. I've already started putting stories with some of the artwork that I've done, and even the new artwork, and that's kind of where I'm headed. And you might actually see some apparel come for me, since I've done a few successful things with other people. I'm going to try to do something on my own at some point.
Cool.
So, trying to get my act together as I'm getting healthier, and kind of climbing out of my own hole. So.
Nice. That's a fantastic story of full circle moment. Um, Getting to work with Haro after that period of time growing up and that being such a huge part of your life. Um, and I want to kind of end on that note because it's such a high note. And just remind the audience that always keep striving and don't give up, which is something that you've exemplified throughout your story today. Is that you had something in mind, you stuck with it, and continued with it. As much difficulty as came from naysayers and parents and different things like that throughout your career, you've stuck with it to the point where now you've got opportunities that have come across your table that have just been sheer pieces and slices of joy for you. Um, and I just want creatives to be able to grasp that and hold on to it. Because there's many a time that we go through periods where we want to give up. Um, so I want to end with the words that I always try to get the audience to remember is to listen to your heart and always be kind to your mind. I appreciate you
That's
for being on, Dan.
That's great. Thank you, Rich. I appreciate it. There's so much more, but I am blessed and very thankful to have you discuss this stuff with me. It's been an honor and a privilege, and I hope that this reaches somebody out there that knows that they got to get up the next day and make it happen for themselves.
For sure. Love that. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, man. All right, take care.